Welcome to That's What I Call Marketing, building a legacy series with Legacy Communications.
Welcome to That's What I Call Marketing, the podcast where you will hear from the leading lights in the marketing world and listen to their unique insights. Well, today we are back with our Building a Legacy series where we help brand and agency marketers build for the future. And this series is in partnership with Legacy Communications, an award-winning agency not only in Ireland but globally, and it has been founded on the principles of soundness, curiosity and braveness. As with all episodes, if you are enjoying That's What I Call Marketing and you can like, review, rate, share the episode, it really does help us reach even more amazing marketers, both brand and agency side, people like yourself. So listen, let's get on to today's episode, and this is probably one of the hottest topics in marketing. So we are going to be talking about the seismic shift in how people are finding things online, and we have an expert panel with us today who are going to take us through that. First off, we have Micheál Brennan. So Micheál leads search and digital PR at Legacy and is focused on the practical end of change in discovery, how AI features, Google updates and platform search affect what people see and how teams should respond. Next up, we have Gus Pologia. Gus is a senior SEO and AI product manager at Indeed, but is bringing his own unique perspective to the episode today. He sits where SEO meets product at global scale. And next we have James Elms, and James heads of corporate PR at Legacy, and he works on how brands are described in credible places and why that matters for trust and this changing landscape that we are here to discuss today. So I think first of all, just great to hear from each of you about when you first noticed things were changing. Micheál, because you're in it every single day, but was there a moment you were like, things are changing?
Yeah, probably about a year and a half ago, I suppose back in March 2024 when Google launched AI overviews, we started to see that change where all along you had a case where people Googled something, they had the results, the answers were weren't within the results, people would click through to websites, whereas now it started to be summarized and showing an answer within the results. And that was probably kind of like actually being truthful and oh shit moment. But then as we kind of got into it, and I noticed my own behaviour is kind of starting to change as well, the same as every other user. So it's definitely been an interesting kind of start to the year this year, and we're trying to move and make sure that we're moving with the times and evolving with the way things are changing. What about you guys?
I think for me, when Google released now already changed the name, used to be SG, Search Generative Experience. First they released just in US and just under Google Labs, so you had to sign up to see it. So I actually got a VPN, and it was, okay, I need to understand how it works, right? Like I need to be prepared for the changes that are going to happen. And so at that time was just like playing around and trying to understand. But for me, the big change was when they released for everyone in US. So then you start seeing like, okay, this is gonna happen. And it took a long time actually to come to Ireland and to come to a lot of places in Europe, which gave us some window there to learn and kind of try to prepare for things. But now I think it's there for everyone. There's no way back.
Yeah, it's definitely not going back. James, for you, was there a moment even in your own kind of personal usage or in work that you kind of realised that things were changing?
I think that's exactly it, Connor. Unlike these guys, I'm not in it every day. We were talking before on like how's a PR guy on a search podcast. So I think that is the result of this shift. Yeah, from my own personal use, I was playing around with ChatGPT and then geeking out as marketers do. I was asking it then how it found the information, and media sources kept coming up. So the likes of, you look at best places to work in Ireland, it was quoting an Irish Times source. So there was definitely something in PR there. So went down the rabbit hole, and it was all about the trust signals, and we can get onto that later. And the trust signals are basically what the core of PR is anyway. Somebody else saying you're great rather than you saying you're great. So that was the first real intro of it, and we've gone down a rabbit hole since.
Yeah, and it has been amazing. But I guess, Micheál, a lot of people will be aware, but specifically what were the changes? Because first of all, Google had a big kind of release last year, and loads of people saw a massive drop off in traffic, and then AI search was kind of coming about, and then the overviews came in. What were the kind of some of the big things that Google have done over the last, I guess, year and a bit that have had an impact on on traffic in many ways.
Yeah, so I suppose obviously the AI overviews has probably affected how many people will click through to a website when it comes to content. So like those top of funnel searches like how to do X, how to do Y. I suppose the interesting thing really is ChatGPT has emerged over the last 2 years and gotten more and more popular. I think a lot of the things that Google are doing at the moment, whether it's AI overviews last year and now they've recently launched AI mode, which is essentially kind of like their version of ChatGPT within the search results. A lot of that is to I suppose counteract that and keep people using Google. But yeah, it's a very interesting time where I suppose Google has been the be all and end all for 20 years, and it's the first time that they probably have someone kind of chasing them. No, it's still much lower. People use ChatGPT a lot, but the level is still pretty low in comparison. The stat that I saw recently was that it's still only 0.21% of people are being referred to websites from ChatGPT as opposed to 40-something% from Google. But the main thing is that Google are having to respond and they're on the back foot and they're changing things as a result of that.
It is interesting, and we'll get on a bit later on to kind of all the death of Google. I think it's fair to say it's not the death of Google, it's just it's a shift. But specifically thinking about those AI summaries, and James, you touched on it, but Gus, from your perspective, how do you see brands showing up in those AI summaries? How are Google making those decisions? This is the right brand to show up.
Yeah, I would break this at this stage into segments. One, a lot of studies are showing there's around a 50% overlap on what we are used to see on the top 10 blue links versus the sources that are being picked up by AI mode or AI overviews. But they try to go a step further with those answers. It's a thing called, Google named the query fun out. So if you're looking for something like, how do I get a leap card? It might just be answering the next steps for you as well. It might say how much a ticket costs, or what are the places that you can buy your card or your ticket and types. So they go and try to predict the next questions that people are going to ask.
Okay.
And they answer in that AI overview as well. And that's slightly different from the top 10 results you would see. So it's drawing from different sources. So you kind of, if you want to be on that space, you need to think a bit broad and say, I need to answer all the questions around that topic, which SEOs have been doing for a long time.
Yeah.
But specifically for that initial search, those steps, you need to look for other sources, other pages on your website that will help answer that question as well.
And we're going to get into kind of like, I guess, some of the practical things people do and some of the hints and tips, because I think that it's going to be really important for this. But James, from your perspective, how important then are the credible sources of this information? Because and you correct me if I'm wrong on the technical side, but it can't just be from your site. I think it's going to look for other credible sources, right?
Yeah, incredibly important in the PR world. I did see 89% of AI summaries eventually track back to earned media coverage, and about 50% of that actual PR media coverage itself. So you can see it's really important. The AI summaries don't live in a vacuum as well. It's picking out those trust signals from those sources. If you search for a company or something that isn't necessarily well known or backed up there, you'll see AI making up stuff.
Right.
Sometimes you'll see hallucinating and very small summaries, but those companies that are really backed up, they've got phrases repeated in credible media, will have those great AI overviews.
And that, again, that's probably a bit about the Google, but also for ChatGPT and Claude and other platforms, because that's just as important to have those credible sources to show up in their results as well.
Oh yeah, big time, big time. I think it's an interesting world to be on now, because Google and those sources will send less traffic to websites, but they depend on those same websites to give them the signals back.
Right.
So if you look for like a lot of comparison websites that used to have a lot of traffic, people are asking straight on ChatGPT or getting the answer in AI mode, what are the best software for A, B, and C?
Yeah.
But the sources that they say to define which are the best ones are still the ones that they're not sending as much traffic anymore. So there's a codependency there that I think at some point they'll have to figure it out, like how do we keep our sources alive?
Yeah.
Because there will be nothing to say, oh, these are the really best companies for A, B, and C, because the models are just crunching information from other places. So at some point it might just get completely outdated. So it's interesting. I think that balance is going to have to is going to happen at some point.
It's definitely like a tipping point there, I think. Like, so if you take the likes of the publishers, they rely on traffic. So obviously they rely on selling newspapers and stuff as well, but they rely on getting traffic to their website so that they can make advertising money, right? But what's happening is the click through to the publisher's website isn't coming, right? So, and it's the same whether it's a media publisher or whether it's a business. So like that, as Gus says, those sources may become not available anymore because it doesn't necessarily make a business sense. So there's kind of like a tipping point there.
It is fascinating, and I kind of get a little bit frustrated now when I put a question into, let's say, Google, and I don't get an AI overview answer. Like, I was trying to figure something out at the weekend, and the overview didn't give the answer, and I got really frustrated because I was like, now I have to go into a website and figure this out. But even to your point, Gus, you can go on and, let's say, ChatGPT, and you can look for a best product. Again, I did it looking to buy something, and I went on to ChatGPT and I said, I'm thinking of buying this thing. Can you do a search for me, and on these criteria, give me ratings and reviews? And it like did this amazing grid, and then I was able to kind of interrogate it a bit more and say, actually, no, I don't think that feature is important for me. How would you re-rate this product on that? Like, it's just fascinating how you can go deep, but really quickly as well.
Yeah. Like, I think we all see like our behaviors changing as well. To say, oh, I can do this quicker on ChatGPT than I can do on Google. So you start going to different places. I think at some point, if they start putting more prominent links on those, will help publishers. Or help you to validate some answers as well. Because there were things that I've ended up asking, like something that just happened last night. I want to know if this football player gave an assist on the last match, and you say, oh yeah, he did. Like, the player wasn't even there.
Okay.
And we are aware that those things happen. They're probably going to happen less in the future, but we know that they happen. So maybe giving the links will be a source for you. So the sources can remain active and profitable at the same time that they feed the AI.
Yeah, because they're so important that those, and again, it kind of comes into where the PR plays part. Now we totally understand why you're here, James.
Right. I think the licensing deal, it's a really interesting one though. It'll be interesting to see where that plays, what kind of fee structure they have. It's really, we're bang in the middle of it now, and we don't really know where it's going to go, so we can speculate. But I could almost see as well that we talk about trust signals. How can we trust the trust signals?
Again, we're in the middle of it, the tipping point. This topic is so important because when we're saying it's the most important shift in the last 20 years, I mean, certainly I remember social media coming about and everyone's like, this is going to change everything. And it changed things to a degree, but like the death of everything else never happened. If we kind of go back to changes in how people are searching, I mean, what is discovery? What is that looking like today?
So like people's behavior has changed so much, so people obviously will do a lot of research, and I know we're talking about like that kind of instant answer thing, but like when you're looking for that instant answer, what you won't realize is that you'll probably have done research across multiple other platforms as well. So people are consuming information across all of the different platforms. Obviously Google is still a very important one, but then there's also Reddit, there's also YouTube, there's also Pinterest or anything else in between. Like if you're thinking of doing decking out in the back garden, you're going to be looking through Pinterest for nice ideas there. So people are consuming information across all of the different channels, where the opportunity then is to kind of appear everywhere, and I suppose that's where PR can drive coverage. It can also drive things on those other platforms as well. Like, so just as an example there, we did a release for ourselves back in May focusing on the zombie apocalypse in Ireland, right? So just a kind of a concept that we had from that TV show The Last of Us. But what was interesting about that was obviously our goal was to get media coverage, but we also got a lot of coverage off of Facebook. So those media houses would have shared on Facebook. There was subreddits that started off the back of it. We're like, did you see this? And like, so obviously what you want is that when you're doing PR, that it will basically get you onto all of those different places. And similarly with SEO, like, and we talk about content and the click-through rates being down, but there's other sources there now that are available. So like that, if you're writing a blog, what's to stop you from turning that into a YouTube video as well? Because it's all connected and it's all across all of the different platforms.
And so that's a great question then about you saying writing a blog. Like, what place does that have now, Gus, from your perspective? Because again, that was a huge thing. The blog is the content, and agency, you know, how do you see that, the importance of that, or is it diminished slightly?
Initially, I thought a lot of this would die, and you would be like, why do we need another blog post explaining how the braces work or how to boil an egg? But in reality, if you still want to be visible for a lot of those things, you still need to be part of it. So even if your pages are just being used to feed the AI models, it is still required. Yeah. So I think blogging is still very alive, and websites and web pages in general. Yeah. It's just the way to measure that is going to be very different.
You are tuned into That's What I Call Marketing, building a legacy series with Legacy Communications.
And James, what Michal was talking about there is kind of an interesting one as well. Yeah, the blog post of old is still a thing, but it's then what else you can do with that content and actually kind of making sure it shows up in different formats in different places. Are you seeing that in the work that you're doing with some of your clients?
Yeah, it is. Well, something like a blog where it can almost be used as the content hub. You use that, we can chop that up into social content, PR angles around that. I think the blog's a good example actually, and I think you talk about discoverability, and it can be from anywhere, as you say. You can go on Instagram, you can do one click, you can build the trust in one click. We've all been done by the Timo ads on Instagram where one click, that looks semi-interesting, I'm going to buy that. I think where PR comes in especially is around the consistency. Yeah. Around that, so the consistency of the messaging, it doesn't have to be everywhere, but everywhere it is going to be, it needs to be the same messaging, and that again helps feed the machines. But I think like that is the key, really, that consistency around the messaging around that. So if you're going to chop it up into certain things, you have to repeat that message, and I think that is the bread and butter of PR as well. Around that.
If I could add to that as well, like I think the real opportunity with content marketing now is to show real expertise. So like maybe 5 or 10 years ago, you come up with a content marketing plan and you might just say, okay, we need to write these 5 posts and just write them and optimize them. Yeah. Whereas now we need to write them, optimize them, but make sure that there's real expertise and real expert input on that subject, whatever that subject is. And then I suppose when I talk about being able to chop things up for different platforms, it's all about showcasing that expertise. That's obviously what the likes of Google and stuff want, but similarly with the LLMs and stuff as well. But that's your real opportunity, rather than just writing blogs for the sake of it, showing that expertise. And then to James's point, that some of those can be pulled out potentially into expert commentary releases and stuff like that as well.
When you say real expertise, you're not talking about technical expertise, you're talking about subject matter expertise.
Subject matter expertise, exactly. So a few years ago you could have just wrote the post, optimized it, anyone could have wrote it, whereas now, like with our clients and with our strategies, we're getting that input from those clients.
I think that fresh thinking, in my mind, from a PR point of view, is so important, because even looking at what data, what information can a company bring that is new, and that's going to then feed that algorithm as well. So it's training that data, training the algorithm with new data rather than just rehashing the same thing. Yeah. And I think that's something you can pull from the experts.
Yeah, exactly, because it can only take what's in the world. So if nothing new is coming into the world, it's this circle, isn't it? Yeah. Do you think, where's the balance of brands kind of going, I'm okay with them taking this to learn for their modeling? Like, is there a point where that's important for brands and a point where brands need to protect their IP, I guess, in a way?
Yeah, I think it depends what you sell, right? Like if you're a brand that sells electronics, it doesn't really matter for you because you don't need that click necessarily. You need someone to go and say, oh, LG is a TV brand, I'm going to go and buy it. Yeah. But LG is not seeing, well, let's see how many people came to read this blog post. That it's not necessarily, I imagine you wouldn't be in their core of their business to do this. So for them, if it's on the training data or not, it doesn't really matter as long as it's correct. But for a lot of other brands that depend on online information, so news publication, they do need that. You wouldn't be like, well, I just read here on The Independent. The Independent says blah, 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 and you never go to the website, then you're killing the business. Yeah,
the whole journey is changing, right? Are you noticing differences in terms of, we've talked about discoverability, but I think even then decisions along the path. Are you seeing things happening differently along the path in terms of I'm now ready to make the decision?
I think the attribution, the way it was, is kind of gone basically, like, because again, before attribution was so clear whether the source was organic or whether the source was social media or direct or whatever is in between, but like the likes of ChatGPT or whatever else won't necessarily link to the website. So what can happen like in situations is that, like, so let's say we're saying who does the cheapest flight to Gran Canaria from Cork. They might come back and say Ryanair, but they're not going to link to the Ryanair website, so then I'm going to go back to Google, or else I'm just going to go straight to the Ryanair website. So that attribution model that's been there and has been really solid is kind of not necessarily gone, but it's totally changed. That is the hardest part, actually, is trying to attribute things correctly. Obviously, most websites that we're working with would see an increase in direct traffic, but then the other side of it is that with Google Ads, most people are bidding on brands as well. So what can happen is that sometimes you'll see cases where people's PPC clicks go up because like that someone went through a journey, they've now decided they're going to go directly to the website, they type that into Google and an ad pops up for them, and that's the one that gets the click. So it's interesting, we're seeing a lot of that where PPC clicks go up or direct clicks go up, and organic clicks aren't necessarily following that same journey then, like, you know.
That's something, it's really interesting, and I think that happens a lot more than we think.
Yeah, like you have to bid, and like if you're running PPC campaigns, you have to bid on your own brand. Like, like you absolutely have to. Again, 4 or 5 years ago it would have been fine because for the most part Google would have like scored the competitors down. Like I remember running competitor campaigns and not necessarily getting much traction because the quality score would be like 1 out of 10, and just they didn't really want to show the ads. Whereas now I think it's almost like a bit of a cash grab where they're kind of making the brands compete for their own clicks. Like So like that, then you have to bid on your own brand. It's taking some of your budget, and then your attribution will come through as PPC as opposed to that it might have come organically or might have come from something direct.
Are there things brands can do, Gus, on that? Because that is a huge challenge. I think anyone listening to it would be like, yes,
Yeah, I think the whole journey got a bit more messier than already was. One thing that I think can help SEOs and maybe all brands to mitigate or understand a little bit more of what's going on in the AI platforms is, it gets a bit technical again.
Okay.
There is
I was like, you're dumbing it down for me though. Like, I appreciate it.
Oh, it's okay. I mean, I'm not a crazy expert. I'm just like everybody, just learning on the go and digging through things. Yeah. But there's all the AI platforms have a bot that they would call the user bot. So ChatGPT user bot, and that bot only hits pages when a page appears as an answer. So if you were searching for the flights from Cork to somewhere else and a Ryanair page was an answer, or a blog was an answer, it will get a visit from this bot. So if you put all together, you don't know what prompts people are using, so you don't have that insight, but you do know that certain pages on your website are really being used by ChatGPT or Perplexity or another platform. And then it might give you direction to say, oh, this page is important. Maybe if I change what is on this page, it will reflect what people are seeing on AI. So maybe I want to talk about a promotion, or I want to talk about a discount code or something else that you can optimize on that front. So that, you know, it's a new way to look at things. What a lot of the SEO tools are doing, they have a massive database of prompts and they're crunching to topics for you. Because we four might search for something and we're all going to search in different ways using different words. So if I give you, here's a 2 million list of prompts, they're all different. What are you going to do with that? Even knowing the prompts, if you knew keywords, you could have a good direction with volume before. So you're like, oh, it's more or less this. These are the most popular ways. But with prompts, it's a lot more broad. So I'm hoping those tools will give us this in one form or another, just to give a good direction to say, maybe we learn that the prompts are very long, or people hit your page, or you as an answer on the second or third question, or something along those lines to give directions to companies. Yeah,
and it's a bit of a gold rush as well for a tool to properly figure it out. There's a few tools that are emerging, and some of the existing SEO tools are trying to do it, but like there is a lot of guesswork within it still. They're still kind of guessing the queries, whereas with keyword research we always had the exact data, but there is a bit of guesswork involved in it as well. And I think the other interesting thing as well is Google have they've kind of limited the results, right? So what's happening in SEOs, there's a big change in Google Search Console, whereas we were talking, in the last 6 months, we were talking about this thing called the great decoupling, which was your blue line in Search Console was here, your purple line, which is your impressions, was here, right? They were always kind of closely related, but what we've started to see in the last 6 months was that those two lines were starting to go further and further apart, and everyone kind of landed on was that it's the great decoupling because impressions are still there, but the clicks are decreasing. But what we've kind of learned is that it's probably more to do with the likes of these tools searching for all sorts of different things, and that's actually inflating the impressions. So because of what Google has done and kind of limited to 10 results, everyone's seeing it within their Google Search Console that the impressions are going way back down to what it was. So it's like, something was kind of accepted as fact over the last 6 months, and even I would have been the same, but since in the last 2 weeks we've kind of learned that it's a lot of it is driven by tools like ChatGPT or the tracking tools as well.
Are you seeing anything, Mihal, as well, if it's in an AI overview, what the clicks are like going into there? Like, are you getting much better performance?
Yeah, it depends. So like if they name you within the AI overview, and then on the right hand side, then it'll show the trusted sources. So that was, again, that's been an interesting conversation over the past year, because at the end of the day, those trusted sources aren't necessarily driving clicks, but you do want to be there. So it's like where SEO is evolving into kind of like a brand function. You don't necessarily get clicks through to the trusted source, but you do want to be there. You do want to be that brand that is named. But they definitely have decreased clicks.
It's interesting because I think during this messy period in particular, that is maybe where strategic PR can step in a little bit more and look at the messaging. In PR, we always talk about the messaging house and brand, the messaging house to start with, and that's sometimes you show that to somebody, one of the clients, and 5 minutes, we'll do the messaging and that's it. But I think now, because it's elevated to performance, it's getting much more of a seat at the table, and it's much more important exactly what the messaging you want, the exact keywords are. And I guess while we don't know what people are prompting yet, we know what we want to be known as. So you can pick those 2 or 3 phrases or positioning that you like and go with that.
And I was thinking exactly the same thing, James, in the sense of pure and not in its traditional sense. Because again, I think, and we, as part of the Building a Legacy series, we're going to talk more about kind of the evolution of PR with some of the other guests and how that has changed. And it's gone from the press release, not saying that it doesn't have a part, but that kind of old school traditional PR mindset that people have, to now PR being so important and central to businesses. It was previously probably seen often as the fluffy add-on, right?
Yeah, though completely PR often seen as the cherry on top or a Hail Mary at the end when something's gone wrong. So we need some PR. I think what it has done, because it's moving from, in my mind, it's fragmenting, but all connected in. There's brand PR, performance PR is coming in now, and then strategic comms PR, I think, is more and more important with the advisory. So I think probably the performance side is pushing it to get more of a seat at the table. But with that, we can influence the other bits, which PR people have been talking about for 20 years, to be involved earlier and earlier in that discussion.
Yeah, it's fascinating. The other thing then as well, your example of a cheap flight from Cork to wherever, AI agents will start to, at a point, book the flight for you. Yeah. I started a quote journey for insurance just to see what it was able to do at this point, right? Yeah. So this is my car details, get me a quote. And it was fascinating to see that in operation. That's going to be another seismic shift that's only, I think here, probably only really beginning.
Yeah, it's definitely at the early stages, and it'd be interesting to see how that works in terms of trust. So I suppose we talk about AI overviews and stuff like that over the past year, there's that element of not fully trusting it. So it'll be interesting to see how that evolves in terms of, will you be comfortable giving your card details to book the flight and pick the dates or whatever. But like as in the power of that going to evolve as well. But I suppose what's interesting probably for me and Gus there is that it's all built off the foundations of SEO, so those same kind of foundations, right? So when we're talking about whether it's AI overviews or AI mode or ChatGPT or whatever, no, don't get me wrong, there's different ways the decisions are being made, but at the end of the day, it's all based off of those kind of 3 foundations of SEO. So the right content, technically sound website and the authority. So talk about those trust signals. So those three things still reign true. So it'll be interesting in terms of agentic AI.
Yeah.
Will it make the decisions based off of the companies that have the best foundation in search in the first instance? But yeah, obviously said going the opposite way, the trust element will be very interesting to see how that works as well. As in, would you let it go the full way, or would you like get it to prompt you and say, okay, I found these flights, you can now go and book them or whatever?
I want it to do everything.
Yeah. Sit back, drink your coffee. Legs up.
I think that trust is going to come with time. I'm just guessing here. Maybe there will be some sort of insurance, or they're going to give you 48 hours to confirm that that purchase, and if it was done through an AI, so until we can confirm, there will be different ways to mitigate the issues there. But I'm sure somebody's going to complain. You're going to see on the news someone bought the flight, wanted to go to Australia, but they went to Austria. Like random things like this will happen.
I think it's like because we're obviously looking at it from a marketing and comms point of view. Like we're in the weeds as well. Yeah. If you look at it from the consumer's point of view, they won't be talking about agentic AI. On the whole, it will be press a button, and this is sorted for you. So I think the trust will build. It will just be something that happens, I think.
Yeah. And it kind of just that again. I know we've said trust a lot, but it's so important. Like you look at Amazon, buy with one click. Yeah. People trust that because they've had the delivery from Amazon, so they trust it, and so it's the ease and simplicity. People definitely want that, but to be simple and easy, you have to be trusted, and that again comes back to the PR element. And one of the things, and it's a bit of a term now, is digital PR. So we hear a lot about digital PR as a concept, and I think we've touched on some of the principles of it, but I was talking to somebody recently and I was saying, digital PR is really important. And they were like, well, what do you mean digital PR? So Michal, I'm not going to answer that question. I gave a brilliant answer at the time, but I got to turn to the expert. Let's define digital PR.
Yeah, and I think it varies depending on who you're talking to then as well. So like, I think
my answer was right then.
Yeah, exactly. So like, you're a trusted source. But yeah, like, so I suppose if we talk about people in the UK, when they're talking about digital PR, they're fully focusing just on the digital media and getting coverage within the digital media that then leads to that trust and credibility, which will bump up your rankings or push you up within the likes of ChatGPT as well. I think in Ireland it is that, but then also the other pieces as well, which I know you'll cover with on the other podcast. But like taking advantage of all of the different channels, so whether it's digital media publications, whether it's social media, whether it's Reddit, whether it's YouTube and everything else in between, but everything now is multi-channel, and that's what the aim of every campaign pretty much should be, to be able to get eyeballs from all of those different channels, whether it's an SEO campaign or whether it's a corporate PR campaign.
I think, and we've touched on it as well, with PR at the centre, you think about how an idea shows up in all the various channels and needs to be one central idea. James, you've talked about that, the kind of one central idea, core idea. How important for you, James, when you're getting briefs or working briefs with the agencies, that to kind of come in and say, right, the core idea is this, but the answer is going to be different in different areas.
That's everything, to be honest. It's something Legacy does really well, and it's we all have a seat at the table at the beginning of this conversation. I think now we have to look at briefs from probably those three different PR angles that we talked about: the strategic PR side, the brand PR side, and the performance PR side. And I think probably looking at three different areas within that, like what are the words involved, what's the data and further information you can have there, and what are the assets you're going to use. And I think you have to be thinking, how is this going to move a person, and how is it going to train a machine for each one of them? So, like for example, with the words digital PR, looking at AI search and everything else there as well, what are the exact phrases that you want repeated? Data, what's the stats that are going to back that up, that's going to be repeated by the machine? And then the assets as well, whether that's photos or FAQs or anything, just all that information that's going to be helpful.
From that, I think it's, you said something there before, like it had to move people, but now it has to help train models as well.
Models as well. We've never thought of before as PR people. Really, so.
That, and from like when you're kind of working on the more technical side, Gus, what are you seeing as fundamental things that people need to start thinking about getting right?
I think one thing that I'm doing a lot is to track the ChatGPT user, because it gives me an idea of how those pages are being used, and it might give me an idea, maybe certain types of pages are showing up more on those sources, so I know that where the opportunity is. But yeah, on the digital PR, answering what Michal didn't want to tell you. I think back in the days for SEO, we would look at digital PR just as links. Are we getting links from other websites pointing to us? And I've been very guilty of it, like, oh, I got coverage on something, but they didn't put a link. So I was just not as excited, which was, I guess, in some extent, like a short sight of SEO to like, we need to get the links because that's how we build trust in Google and that's how we get our ranks to go up. But now rankings don't matter as much, right? Because people are getting a lot of answers straight on the AI. So if you are position 5 or position 7 or position 3, all of those clicks are diminishing. So it goes, interesting enough, it goes more towards the traditional PR. That is just getting a messaging that will say good things about a company or whatever you defined on the brief that the company should be known for A, B, and C. That's what you're trying to do as well. So I guess the link, it's a little less important now, or the messaging becomes more important, because if people would just potentially just look at one answer and define that as if it's correct or not, if it's the reality about this brand. So you're looking for earbuds under €100. There's going to be a list there. You want to be on that list if your product matches those conditions. And the way to be there is with the traditional PR. You want to be on the Black Friday list. You want to be on the reviews that companies are doing from all the trustable sources. Mm-hmm. Even though you might not be you'll get some benefit from people that are going straight to the sources, but you also want to convince the model. Yeah. So we always said write for humans, but I think more and more we're writing for bots because the bots will convince the humans.
Is there a different style of writing for the bots versus the humans?
I think what's happening now, it's like a lot of places are, you should be more straightforward, like maybe less fluff, less about the story of your recipe, how your grandma gave you this when she moved from very far away, and that's what's the secret of your carbonara or something. But you're just going to go straight to the point. Okay. So the phrases should be easy to read, all facts should be connected there. So I think it's going more straight to the point than it once was. Maybe before you would have wanted to, or people would fluff a lot of pages to make them bigger, to say, oh, there is volume of content here. Yeah. To just chop the actual bits that matter the most.
I hate that when you go to a recipe page and like the recipe's right, and I'm like, I literally don't care. I want the recipe, I want the instructions.
And that's, I think, why AIO reviews are going so well, because it's cutting that out. And I suppose, I've talked at the beginning about that all shit moment when it just came in. But I was fine for like 3 months because they weren't very good. Yeah. And then it got to a point like that where I was looking up a recipe and it gave me, it was how to boil an egg medium, because I was doing eggs for the young lads. And the AIO review gave me the perfect answer. And like that, it was the first time where I didn't have to go through to a website and scroll through that story about making eggs in the morning with your grandmother or whatever else in between. And I was like, oh, this is actually good. So it's like, no, how are we going to adapt to that? Like, I think the other interesting thing then as well, it's that crossover between like messaging for SEO, for like ChatGPT, but also that human, like those couple of words before or after your company name are so important. So like obviously James would make sure that there's really strong messaging, but it's just that little bit where it could be like insurance company 123.e. You want to make sure that the words that are around the so you want to make sure that the words that are around your brand name are kind of what you want people to know you as. And it's not necessarily as like a company 123. You need it to be that relevant thing. And like obviously, PR and SEO would never have necessarily been friends or whatever.
What we talked about in the last episode, it almost seemed like and people can go back and watch that. We did a series last year, and one of it was in a way was why SEO was part of a PR agency, and this is way before. Like Legacy probably have been ahead of the game by bringing you in at the stage they did before this wasn't even on the radar then. Exactly, I know it's kind of going the flip side where we're making sure that every SEO campaign has got that PR focus as well, and making sure that it's going to satisfy all of those pieces.
I think that's going to bring back a certain element of boring PR. But I think you need to. I think press releases need to say the exact words, FAQs, making sure you have that. But then I think at the same time, it's going to increase the need for the creative PR side as well. Yeah. So you're not going to a journalist might not be interested in that. A blog may be interested in more of the kind of here's the facts, here's the press release. But then I think you need to be thinking, how are you going to pitch that to a journalist? What's the creative angle you're going to have there? So I think you're just having to think a lot more in terms of those different audiences, and maybe it's 10 different press releases rather than 2.
Right.
Or 20 different pitches rather than one pitch. But it's definitely that link between performance and brand. It's a really interesting one. And I think AI for the first time genuinely brings everybody together to have to have those conversations together.
Yeah, it is showing up the silos can't exist because it's pulling from multiple different places to give you the answers. Maybe sticking to kind of keeping things practical, are there things, Gus, that you see that people might be doing that they might need to stop or change?
I think how we track things in SEO, it's changing a lot, and as we touched on that before. So yeah, I think tracking is going to change a lot, and there's a lot to learn on how to do it so it's meaningful.
Okay, great. Micheál, what about you? Are the things you're thinking people need to start changing an approach?
Yeah, I think obviously, look, there's a lot of noise in the industry, and there's all of these new terms, GEO, AEO, EIEIO. It's just like, you know, there's so many different things coming in, and I suppose I actually robbed that. But what we're seeing, right, so there's lots of people making noise, and of course everyone is going to make noise because they want to get a piece of the pie. But I suppose what do we see a lot when we see people talk about GEO or AEO, and then it'll be like SEO is dead, and it's like, here are all the things you need to do for GEO, and it's all of the exact same principles that we've talked about for the last 20 years, right? So it's the exact same thing. So, but yeah, like those 3 foundations of SEO, the right content, the technically sound website, and the most important part for me being the authority and the trust. Obviously we've evolved, was called it authority over the last 15 or 20 years in terms of links, but now it's evolved where it's links, it's mentions. But like strong brands will do well, whether it's in Google search or whether it's in ChatGPT and everything else in between. So like the main thing is set up the foundations correctly, obviously recognize that no things are multi-channel, so set up that foundation, build into those other channels like the YouTubes, like the Reddit and everything else. But the main thing really is build your brand.
Yeah. James, how about you?
Yeah, I think we've talked a bit about the idea of search everywhere optimization today, but that doesn't have to, like, people see the shiny object of search everywhere, we have to do everything. It doesn't mean we have to do everything. In fact, probably the opposite. It's that sit back, look at the positioning you want, look at the key messaging you want to get out there, decide on those channels you want, decide the channels that are going to be important for both, again, the humans and the machines, and then
I think to identify where your customers are then as well. So we work with software companies, Reddit's going to be important and YouTube's going to be important.
Yeah.
Whereas like the other things, like let's say again, if we were working with a DIY company, it's going to be like more like the Pinterest, and it's kind of identifying where they are and putting your messaging toward, or putting your campaigns towards those types of channels, I reckon, is it?
I think so. And it's, as you said with SEO as well, it's the same principles that have been there for 20 years. And this is exactly the same with PR for 20 years. It's get the messaging right, make sure you're pitching to the right media, and then get that coverage. It's a new lens, and it's a new type of KPI that looks at that performance PR.
Are you, like, when you're looking at others, maybe in other markets that maybe the US would be doing it before us, is there any you're kind of going, they seem to have got this really, really good?
That's a good one for you. So Go Compare over in the UK.
Okay.
So definitely have a look at their website. They've so obviously they're optimizing for SEO. They're optimizing then as well for they're doing it really well for the likes of ChatGPT. Like when Gus talked earlier about kind of like the query fan out, what they're looking for is chunks and bite size. So question answer. If you look at Go Compare, all of their sales pages are that kind of type of format. And then the other thing that they're doing is what we talked about earlier, which is the expertise. So now when you look at their sales pages, you'll see that there's quotes from internal experts within their sales page as well. So it'll be like, Connor has worked in insurance for X number of years, right, and he's done this and this. So it's like giving that extra bit of expertise as well. So they're the one that I've seen that are doing things really, really well. And when we look at their traffic, obviously we're looking with third-party tools and stuff like that, but they've seen a lot of growth over the last year and a half.
There's so much in this space, and yet people have to dig into it. But are there places that each of you go to kind of read, look up? I mean, obviously people can go to Legacy Communications and benefit from your expertise, but outside of that, where are you kind of going to to read up?
The guy that I always like is a guy called Rand Fishkin. His company is Spark Toro. He's been at the forefront of SEO for the last 15, 20 years. Usually what he says is correct, right? And he's put out a lot of really good stuff within the past year. The interesting thing is there's so many new studies and so many sources. So again, there's a guy, Mike King, over New York, who's another guy that's doing really, really deep studies on it. But they would be the kind of ones. The other one that I find interesting is there's a website called ChatGPT versus Google.com, and that's monitoring the click-through rates from the different sources. So that's an interesting one. I think it's analysed 50,000 websites now at this stage, and it's kind of comparing all that. So it is interesting.
I would say Mike King is the one that is in the forefront of everything. If I'm reading one of his articles, it takes me about 2 hours.
Yeah, they're in depth.
I sit down and I'm just like, this is going to be my morning. But there are a lot of stuff that I honestly read a couple of times, and I make some notes, and I try to piece all the things together. But I've managed to build a lot of things from the learnings I got from him. Yeah. So it's very complicated, but it's also in the front of everybody else. So I see a lot of developments in the industry that are coming from things that he shared maybe a year, 2 years ago.
When you think about this complex landscape, and as marketers, it's very hard to keep up on everything, and it's where you can lean into an agency like Legacy to kind of do that bit for you. Take the 2 hours to read the articles and come back with recommendations, and so that's definitely a huge advantage of having a Legacy Communications as a partner on this journey, because it is a shift. It's a massive shift.
Yeah, and we're running our own testing as well. And again, luckily on agency, you get to work with multiple clients across multiple sites, so you're able to take learnings from one site over to the other one. Whereas like that, if you're in-house, you're only working on that one site. So yeah, being able to bring learnings from all of the different industries is pretty useful as well.
Well, listen, guys, thank you so much for joining today. It was fascinating. I mean, this is, we said at the start, like it's the biggest topic in marketing. But what's great is, I think the fundamentals remain really true and core, so it's kind of not panic stations for people, but it's really important. I think everyone's getting just their heads around it, getting up to speed, and then, as I said, kind of leaning into the expertise that you offer. So that's it for today's episode of That's What I Call Marketing, our Building a Legacy series, and we'll be back next week with another episode in the series talking about brand and the newsroom. Really delighted to be partnering with Legacy Communication on these episodes, and thanks so much to my guests Micheál, Gus and James. Until the next episode, from me, your host Conor Byrne, take care.